A Secret Service agent, though, shot at Routh as he hid in the bushes with a rifle, lying in wait along Trump's international golf course near Mar-a-Lago.
Routh fled the scene but was arrested minutes later.
For the second time within 2 months, there's been another too close for comfort incident, this time on Trump's own golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida. The 58-year-old would-be assassin, identified as Ryan Ruth, was between 300 to 500 yards away from Trump. According to one report, the Secret Service had spotted a rifle barrel sticking out of a fence, and agents fired at a man who was in the bushes along the perimeter. That's according to the Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw. It's unclear whether the suspect fired a single shot or whether he was injured in the exchange, in contrast to Thomas Crooks, who fired shots and was killed on the spot. According to one report, law enforcement found an AK-47 style rifle, a GoPro camera and backpacks where the suspect was positioned. The suspect fled in a car, a black Nissan, which was pursued on the I-95 interstate by around 20 patrol cars and a helicopter, according to one witness. Ruth was detained after being stopped on the highway. And so we're back to the same question we faced less than 2 months ago. Who is this guy? Why did he do what he did? And what is happening in America?
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. If you're new to this channel, I covered the Thomas Crooks incident in a lot of detail. I've also covered and profiled mass shooters in more than one book. And the thing that stands out immediately to me is, despite an impression of Ruth as unhinged, he was silent when taken into custody. We understand from law enforcement that he was very calm. He wasn't displaying any emotion, Kay said. He knew enough to stay silent, David Arenberg, state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida, told CNN's Anderson Cooper on Sunday evening. He did not apparently speak to officers. He was calm. So it looked like a person who has done this before, not necessarily this crime, but someone who has repeated interactions with law enforcement, and that would turn out to be true. If he wasn't showing any emotion when arrested, that's not because he wasn't emotional. Unlike the situation with Thomas Crooks, there's no lack of social media this time to profile. There's no lack of political intent or political affiliation, where him saying explicitly, this is who I support on his social media. It's also very clear where Ruth's political affiliations lie, his allegiances, and also how these have evolved over time. And we're going to deal with that in this analysis. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. So briefly, Ruth's most obvious identifying trait is his support for the war effort in Ukraine. Not just talking about it, he actually has acted. He's traveled to the country 2 years ago in 2022, going so far as to enlist, but being turned away. I mean, he's 58 years old. And then he focused his efforts on trying to recruit others, specifically on Facebook in October last year, 2023. Ruth also expressed strong support for Ukraine on social media, according to one report. In dozens of posts on X in 2022, he said he was willing to die in the fight. So you can see there's a lot of emotion behind his actions. Number two, unlike Thomas Crooks, Ruth's political leanings have been crystal clear, including the fact that Ruth was aware of the Crooks incident, and we know this because he posted his responses on X. Number three, Ruth apparently voted for Trump in 2016, supported Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy, who were running against Trump for the Republican candidacy. At the time, he urged, you cannot quit. You must stay on the ballot to the end. You must fight. By March, both had been knocked out of the race by Donald Trump. It appears at this point, Ruth's affiliation then turned to Biden and then to Harris. According to an article in the Times, quote, He is on North Carolina voting records as an active voter with no party affiliation. Unaffiliated voters can choose which primary election they vote in, and in March this year, he cast his ballot in the Democratic primary for President Biden to be the party's presidential candidate. Now let's deal with his background. On paper, Ruth is something of a mixed bag. On the one hand, one has a sense of a middle-aged man trying to be a hero, and let's face it, failing. On the other hand, if one is tempted, like his son, Orrin, to dismiss Ruth as just a kind of a good-hearted guy with his heart in the right place, well, the fact is this guy's had run-ins with the authorities going back the last 20 years, some of them serious. Again, according to the Times, an account of an incident in the Greensboro News and Record in North Carolina in December 2002 tells of Ruth being pulled over for a traffic stop during which he put his hand on a firearm, fled, then barricaded himself for 3 hours inside the roofing business where he worked. Now, he did something similar in this incident. He certainly had his hands on a firearm, fled. He actually left the firearm at the scene, at the fence, and then fled in a vehicle. Then also in 2010, he faced felony charges for possessing stolen goods. And then there's also his possession of a weapon of mass destruction. As far as he knew, his father had only ever had some traffic tickets. That's what his son told reporters. But while Ruth's criminal record with the North Carolina Department of Adult Correction confirms a range of past traffic offenses that resulted in his driving license being revoked in 2002, he was also charged that year on one felony count of possessing a weapon of mass destruction, a fully automatic machine gun. He was placed on probation. Looks like 2002 was really not a good year for him. Then there have been other incidents that are arguably less serious. According to one report, I think from CNN, public records reveal several court cases involving Ruth since the 1990s. State and federal authorities have repeatedly accused him of failing to pay his taxes on time. For example, he faced a federal tax lien in 2008 of about $32,000. In 1998, the state alleged he committed an offense related to a worthless check, though that case was dismissed. Separately, judges have ordered him to pay tens of thousands of dollars to plaintiffs in various civil suits. So you kind of have a sense of someone who is really a mixed bag. He doesn't seem to really respect the government. He doesn't seem to respect authority. He does seem to see a lot of value in owning and using weapons. He seems to like the idea of being a soldier. Anyway, let's go on to a psychological profile. Missing from Ruth's backstory is social glue. Did he have any friends? We know he had a son and that they have been estranged, and besides that, he seems to be single and a loner. His companion these days seems to be social media and the mainstream news, not actual people. According to the Times, Ruth studied mechanical engineering at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University from 1995 to 1998. In May 2018, he founded Camp Box Honolulu, an organization in Oahu, Hawaii, dedicated to building affordable housing for the homeless. He described himself as economical, energetic, unrelenting, and constantly focused on contributing as much as possible to the community, always trying to put in far more than I take out. So he seems to see himself as a humanist. Also, according to the Times, on his LinkedIn account, he wrote, "Work has never been about money, rather building frameworks for people to thrive and succeed. I love the unlimited opportunity right in front of us." Now, one really has the impression you have someone with too much time on their hands that has gotten too caught up with the world's problems and then got carried away on social media. You also just have the impression of someone who's on his own a lot, a loner. And then his mind just gets very busy based on the news and the news cycle. Now, contextually, it's easy to see the emotional and psychological tide washing Ruth. The crime was committed on a Sunday, which can be the loneliest day for loners. It was also, I suspect, based on Ruth's fear that everything being equal, Trump is going to win this election and there's nothing anyone can do to stop that. And him interpreting that as really bad news for Ukraine. At the same time, the issue of Ukraine getting permission to fire Western missiles into Russia has been under discussion. That was under discussion this past weekend. It was a very crucial aspect, but no decision has been taken. And so one can see how all of these uncertain events have played havoc on Ruth's busy mind. But regardless of Ruth's backstory, it's difficult not to see America and the world beyond teetering on the verge of a dark road in general. In a weird way, we are facing the same thing, facing the same uncertainty, facing the same sense of paralysis and helplessness in a divided world. As one news report put it, twice within 2 months, America has narrowly avoided seeing a major political figure assassinated during an election season, and the toxic forces that such an outrage could unleash in a country wrecked by visceral partisan divides. It's really all of this nastiness is coming home to roost in a way that I think all of us can agree is really unpleasant, not something that anybody wants. Those toxic forces, let's face it, are playing fast and loose on unmoderated platforms like X. Folks are gravitating to their polarized positions to blame either side for what has happened here. The coverage of X that I've seen in the aftermath to this incident has been, as one could predict, a race to try to recover Ruth's social media, and there's talk about a conspiracy to cover it up. But do you know why social media of assassins and shooters should be removed? Why there's a good common sense reason to do that? Well, lest it inspire or incite someone else. If this person's writings have inspired him, there's definitely an odds chance that it could do that to somebody else, and we don't want that to happen. And yet you see accounts trying to mine the toxic rants of an unhinged individual in order to weaponize them. And so I think one's got to ask, do we want a civilized society? Do you want a civilized society? Well, if you do that, then we must first of all respect law and order. And that applies to people who own social media platforms as well. If we want a civilized society, we must try to be respectful of those we disagree with. Also, we must try not to inflame kind of a toxic environment as it is. That's also one of the reasons I didn't cover the Trump-Harris debate. Instead of doing this video, I would have done that. And now I don't really want to do it because I don't want to inflame tensions. And if I do it, I want to do it in a way that doesn't do that. And so, according to CNN, there will now be fresh fears that a tempestuous period running up to Election Day could take the country further down a dark road. Do you agree that it feels like we are going down a dark road? And I feel like we need, at this point, to take stock. Fortunately, no one has been killed. We need to take stock where we are now and try and learn from these incidents and learn from these mistakes. And I feel the way to do that is to turn our focus onto social media. Your consumption of it, my consumption of it, and also what is being allowed to be placed onto social media. I also think the mainstream news reporting needs to be conscious of people that disagree with them and not be unnecessarily insightful. So in other words, try and moderate yourself in the way that you disagree. Try and disagree respectfully. In other words, just try to de-escalate the tensions. Try to be less polarized. Try not to think in terms of us and them. And so what I think America needs, what the world needs, what we all need, is an end to the polarizing divisiveness going on and a beginning to people coming together based on shared interests and our common humanity.
Fine.
Please, Neo, you have to trust me.
Why?
Because you have been down there, Neo. You know that road. You know exactly where it ends. And I know that's not where you want to be.
Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.